Hello there. This short story is called Spontaneous Human Combustion at the Funhouse. I think I'm going to burst into flames. It's not a feeling I've ever had before. It's not something I've even thought about, well, except for that one time. I was on a train, and the train manager came over the loudspeaker and he said, "Take care as you alight." Oh, I thought, I didn't know that was a possibility. But right now, right at this moment, I think I'm going to burst into flames. I was reading this account the other day about some man who burst into flames. There he was, just minding his own business when, woof, a dog came in. And then he burst into flames. Ironically, his name was Ash. He'd called his next-door neighbour, but his next-door neighbour had said, "Liar, liar, pants on fire." "And the rest of me too," Ash had replied. And after that, he was quite dead indeed. It's rather disconcerting, knowing that you might go up at any moment. I phoned my ex and I said to him, "I'm worried I'm about to go up." "First time for everything," he sighed. So much for rekindling old flames. The thing about spontaneous human combustion is that I expect it is the sort of thing you can only do once. I'd spent most of the afternoon in the shower. My friend Beth has always said that I have a warm personality. "You don't know the half of it," I thought of replying. "Let's go to the fun fair," I suggested, "and pretend that it's not about to happen. By the way, I think I've got heartburn." "Okay," Beth said. "Okay, what?" I replied. "Okay, let's go to the fun fair." I don't think Beth believed me when I said that I was going to burst into flames. She said it was like one of those stories you read, where the lead character is also the narrator, and it's obvious that whatever troubles they faced, they had survived, because it was a first-hand account. She then told me that she didn't really entirely believe in spontaneous human combustion, but that her uncle had once seen spontaneous goat combustion, and for the rest of the day he'd had a strange hankering for a lamb roast. But she didn't believe me, I'm sure of it. On the other hand, I'd hate it if my last words would turn out to be, "See, I told you." A friend of mine is a fireman, and I phoned him up and I asked him for some advice. "Well," he said, "you can always fight fire with fire." "But that's no bleeding good," I said. "In fact, I reckon that would be counterproductive. If you want me to rush around there with my big hose, then you've got another thing coming," he'd said. We met at a housewarming party. As I say, he's a fireman. Ironically, his name is Byrne. Beth and I arrived at the fun fair on a glorious evening. The fun fair was on the village green next to the pub and the main road. The setting sun had made the sky all red, and the neon and fluorescent lights of the fair contrasted and complemented the glory of the clouds. The world seemed lit with promise, as if in competition with the mystique and the firmament of space in its eternal and ethereal wonder, lighting up the angular facade of Wetherspoons. "You haven't dried your hair after the shower," Beth said. "It's true, I am somewhat moist," I replied, "but it's all on account of the spontaneous human combustion." "Just plan to do it at 9 o'clock, she said. "Say to yourself, 9 o'clock is when I'll go up in flames." "Why?" I asked. Because then it won't be very spontaneous, will it? It doesn't work like that, I pointed out. How would you know if you've never done it? She replied. The funfair had all the usual accoutrements, such as stalls and dodgems and a couple of rides. But it was in the middle of a circus tent, with a barker standing out the front, that I wanted to go to. And by this, I don't mean a dog. I mean a man dressed as a circus ringmaster. He seemed very excited about the tent behind him, which was decorated in large fluorescent lettering and the word Funhouse. Beth and I stood in front of him for a little bit. "Roll up," he said through a loudspeaker. "Roll up. Gaze in wonder at our funhouse. Never before in human history has so much fun been crammed into one small space. See the amazing bearded man. Marvel at the badger who thinks he's on EastEnders. We have relics from the sinking of the Titanic, including some of the original ice. We have a horse. And a very large rug which needs putting away. Roll up, ladies and gentlemen, roll up." This might take my mind off the spontaneous human combustion, I pointed out. And if it doesn't, well, they might at least have fire extinguishers. "Don't be so blasé," Beth replied. We went inside. Beth didn't seem very impressed. The first place we went was the Hall of Mirrors. The skinny mirror made me look thin. The wavy mirror made me look wavy. The fat mirror made me look more or less the same. The ghost train was inoperative, and instead there was a ghost rail replacement bus. The tunnel of love was just boring. Beth seemed to be wavering in her appreciation of the funhouse. Yet I, with my lurking, inevitable internal combustion, saw the fortune-teller sitting on a poufet in the corner, puffing away on a crafty fag. And I thought, she might know what my future has in store. As I approached, she stubbed out her ciggy in the foil casing of a half-consumed Bakewell tart, and I was glad that she didn't immediately reach for a fire extinguisher. She had an expression on her face like a ferret with gout. Her chin looked like it was pursuing its own career in show business. By way of greeting, she said, as is customary, "Hello." Her voice was gruff, like that of a trawlerman called Pete. She waved her hands at the lingering smoke. "Got told off yesterday, didn't I?" she said. "I was having a gasper. Didn't realise it was against company rules." "You didn't see that one coming?" I asked, suspiciously. "I'm a fortune-teller, love. For other people. Doesn't work on myself, does it? I deal in the mystical workings of the universe, not company health and safety regulations. Now tell me, love, have you been to a soothsayer before?" "Yes, I have." "And what did they say?" "Sooth," I replied. She didn't laugh. "Now listen," she said. "Some bastard has nicked my tarot cards. So if you don't mind, I'm going to use a pack of He-Man top trumps." She opened the pack and laid them on the table next to us. Skeletor was the first card. Then came Castle Grayskull. The next card was Skeletor again, followed by another Skeletor. Then Groundskeeper Willie. "Sorry, love, don't know how that got in there," she said. Then came another Skeletor. She looked up at me. "Let me guess," I said. "The Skeletor card isn't necessarily an omen of death?" "Let's put it this way," she replied. "You'll be saving on winter heating bills." Beth and I went and had another mooch around the funhouse. We both decided to leave. The petting zoo in the corner only had chickens, and I'd never wanted to pet a chicken. There was also a couple of cocks, but that's a different matter. I had a go on the test your strength machine, but I couldn't even lift the hammer. We were just about to leave when there was a sudden, blinding flash of fire and warmth. "Oh my God," Beth screamed. "He's gone up!" As luck would have it, it was only a fire-eater, which I was glad about because I'd been wearing my best shirt. With great panache he spewed tongues of fire, momentarily lighting up the funhouse and scaring the chickens. Ever the showman, he pranced and danced, his flaming torch raised to his lips, followed by a blinding flash, a sharded explosion whose warmth and brilliance seared into the night, throwing shadows as if making cavemen of us all, and more solitary beasts in search of warmth, or an inhabitant of Milton Keynes. I'd seen fire-eaters before. On holiday at the coast one year, I'd been mesmerised by Marvello and his mastery of flame. The next year, the great Splendido was similarly exuberant, scorcher to the stars. And now, here at the Funhouse, this, apparently, was Ben. He was an interesting character. His face was angular and defined, almost cubist, like a Tesco's carrier bag full of chisels. Beth and I stood and watched, entranced by Ben's mastery of putting fire in his gob, and when he finished, we both clapped. "Oh, thanks for that," he said, in a strange high and squeaky voice. "Just doing my job." "You were so good at it," I said. "You were literally on fire." "Thanks, mister." "What I'm certainly interested in is how you protect your insides from burning up," I said. "To be honest," he said, "you do get a bit of blowback. That's how I lost my eyebrows. But for my insides, yes, there have been one or two occasions where my lunch has been reheated, and I once belched at my aunt's flat and accidentally roasted her budgie. You know what, though? The best advice that I could give is just to relax and not even think about it. So that's what I do. I just get on and I live my life. Oh, and when I'm practicing at home, I'm always careful to turn off the smoke alarm." The whole time we were chatting, I noticed that his bow tie was smouldering. "How did you get into this?" I asked. "Curry," he replied. He was quite cute, was Ben. I might even say hot. I could imagine living with him and how handy it would be. He'd have a steak and kidney pie cooked in no time. But I knew that it wouldn't last, the two of us. I just had the ceiling of my flat repainted. I licked my fingertips and squeezed his bow tie, putting out the tiny flames with a slight hiss. "I'd better go," he said. "I've got to get my indigestion tablets." "Bye," I whispered. "Bye." At that moment the fortune-teller ran over and said rather breathlessly, "You will fall in love with a mysterious—" "You're too late," I said. "Damn!" Beth and I went outside. The sun was starting to set and the funfair was coming alive. On one side, the rides and the stalls, the lights, the neon, the music and the noise. On the other, a demonstration of dogs herding up some geese. The world seemed perfectly normal. "That's the best advice," Beth said. "Don't worry. Don't panic. Don't prevaricate. Be free to live your life without pondering on something that might not even happen. If we let fate dictate our actions, then a fear of the unknown will take over, and we will never be free to enjoy ourselves. No matter how far-fetched our private fears, We mustn't let them ruin the good times. She took hold of my hand. Let's go home, she said. It's starting to get a bit chilly. I smiled at her and gave her hand a squeeze. Yes, I whispered. And then, all of a sudden, woof!